The surveillance cameras were working. Every person who entered the building that night was captured on video. Police searched every possible exit. They interviewed dozens of witnesses. They reviewed the security footage again and again. Yet one question has remained unanswered for almost 20 years. How does a man disappear from a crowded bar without anyone seeing him leave? His name was Brian Shaffer. He was 27 years old, a medical student, a son, a boyfriend. Only a few hours earlier, nothing about his life suggested that he was about to become the center of one of America's most baffling missing person cases. He had dinner with his father. He laughed with friends. He was looking forward to a vacation in Miami. Everything about that Friday seemed completely ordinary. At 1:55 in the morning, surveillance cameras captured Brian standing just outside the entrance of a bar called the Ugly Tuna Saloona. He was talking with two women. The conversation lasted less than 2 minutes. Nothing about it appeared unusual. The women later told police that Brian looked relaxed. He smiled. He never asked for help. He never appeared frightened. When the conversation ended, the two women walked toward the escalator. Brian turned around and walked back toward the entrance of the bar. That was the last confirmed moment anyone ever saw him. No camera recorded him leaving. No witness remembered seeing him outside. His phone was never used again. His bank accounts remained untouched. His passport stayed inside his apartment. For investigators, this wasn't just another missing person case. It was an impossible puzzle. If Brian left the building, how did every camera miss him? If he never left the building, what happened inside? Those questions have divided investigators, journalists, and independent researchers for years. Some believe Brian planned his disappearance. Others believe he became the victim of a crime. And some think the answer has been hidden inside the investigation from the very beginning. Tonight, we're reopening this case, not to repeat the theories you've already heard, but to separate facts from speculation, to understand what really happened. We first have to go back to the beginning of that Friday, because sometimes the smallest decision can change the rest of a person's life. Before investigators could understand what happened that night, they first had to understand the man at the center of the mystery. Brian Randall Shaffer was 27 years old. He was in his second year at the Ohio State University College of Medicine. Friends described him as intelligent, confident, and outgoing. He enjoyed live music, spending time with friends, and rarely turned down a chance to go out on the weekend. Nothing about Brian suggested he wanted to disappear. He had plans, real plans. Only a few days later, he and his girlfriend, Alexis Wagoner, were supposed to leave for a vacation in Miami. Friends said Brian had been looking forward to that trip for weeks. But behind the excitement, there was also pain. Just weeks before his disappearance, Brian's mother, Renee, had died after a long illness. The loss had shaken the entire family. Those closest to Brian later said he tried to stay strong. He returned to classes. He continued meeting friends. He smiled. He joked. From the outside, he appeared to be moving forward. Whether that grief affected his decisions that night has never been proven. Investigators considered the possibility, but they never found evidence that linked his mother's death to his disappearance. That distinction is important, because in a case surrounded by speculation, facts matter more than assumptions. On Friday, March 31st, 2006, Brian finished another demanding week of medical school. Spring break had finally begun. That evening, he met his father, Randy Shaffer, for dinner at a local steakhouse. According to Randy, the conversation felt completely normal. They talked about school, family, and Brian's upcoming trip to Florida. Nothing Brian said sounded unusual. Nothing suggested that this would be their final dinner together. When the meal was over, they walked to the parking lot, said goodbye, and drove away in separate directions. Years later, Randy admitted there wasn't a single day he didn't replay that moment in his mind. wondering whether Brian had been trying to tell him something, or whether everything truly had been as ordinary as it seemed. Within the next few hours, Brian would meet two friends, visit several bars, and unknowingly, take the first steps toward one of the most baffling disappearances in modern American history. March 31st, 2006. For Brian Shaffer, it felt like the beginning of a well-earned break. Medical school was finally behind him, at least for a few days. Spring break had arrived, and like thousands of other college students across America, he planned to spend the evening with friends. After dinner with his father, Brian met William Florence, known to everyone as Clint. Not long afterward, they met Brian's friend, Meredith Reed. The plan wasn't complicated. Visit a few bars, listen to live music, celebrate the start of spring break. The first part of the night passed without incident. The group laughed, talked, had a few drinks. Nothing unusual happened. No arguments, no confrontation, no suspicious encounters. Every witness investigators later interviewed described Brian the same way. Relaxed, friendly, completely normal. As the night continued, the group decided to head toward one of the busiest bars near the Ohio State campus, a place called the Ugly Tuna Saloona. At the time, it was one of the most popular bars in Columbus. On Friday nights, it was almost always packed. Students filled every table. Music echoed across the room. Bartenders struggled to keep up with the constant flow of customers. To Brian, it was simply another stop during a night out. But investigators would later realize that this building was unlike most others. The bar was located on the second floor of the South Campus Gateway complex. Visitors usually reached it by taking a long escalator from the street below. There was also an elevator nearby. At first, that detail didn't seem important, but as the investigation unfolded, the layout of the building would become one of the biggest challenges detectives ever faced. Surveillance cameras recorded Brian, Clint, and Meredith arriving shortly after 1 o'clock in the morning. The footage clearly showed the three friends entering the complex together. Investigators would later study those few seconds countless times, because they marked the beginning of Brian Shaffer's final confirmed movements. Inside, the atmosphere was exactly what you would expect. Music, crowds, conversations. Nothing appeared out of place. Brian ordered drinks, talked with friends, moved through the bar like everyone else. No witness remembered him acting nervous. No one recalled an argument. No one noticed anything that suggested danger. For nearly 40 minutes, the night remained completely ordinary. And then, at approximately 1:55 a.m., Brian walked toward the entrance. What happened over the next 2 minutes would become the most important timeline in the entire investigation. At approximately 1:55 a.m., Brian walked away from his friends and headed toward the entrance of the Ugly Tuna Saloona. Surveillance cameras captured him standing just outside the bar. There, he began talking with two women, Amber Jeffries and Brighton Barr. At the time, it seemed like an ordinary conversation. The three smiled, they laughed. Nothing appeared unusual. Years later, both women would tell investigators the same thing. Brian looked completely relaxed. He wasn't arguing with anyone. He didn't appear frightened. He never asked for help. The conversation lasted only a minute or two. Then, Amber and Brighton walked toward the escalator to leave. Brian turned around. Instead of following them, he walked back toward the entrance of the bar. That decision changed everything. Because from that moment forward, there is no confirmed evidence showing what happened to Brian Shaffer. Detectives immediately focused on the surveillance system. If Brian had entered the bar again, surely the cameras would show him leaving later. But they didn't. Investigators watched the footage once, then again, then dozens of times. Every person entering the building was identified. Every group leaving was carefully examined. Customers, employees, security staff, food delivery workers. Everyone who appeared on camera became part of the investigation, except Brian. His image never appeared leaving through the main entrance. At first, detectives believed they had missed something. Maybe Brian left while hidden behind another group of people. Maybe the camera angle created a blind spot. Maybe the timestamp was incorrect. They checked everything, again and again, frame by frame. Nothing changed. Brian entered the building, but there was no confirmed footage showing him leaving it. That discovery transformed a missing person investigation into one of the strangest surveillance mysteries in modern American history. The cameras had captured his arrival. They had captured his final conversation, but they had not captured his disappearance. Detectives were now facing a question they could not answer. If Brian never appeared leaving through the front entrance, where did he go? And more importantly, how could someone disappear from a crowded building without a single person remembering what happened? Brian's friends waited. At first, they weren't worried. Bars were crowded. People often became separated for a few minutes before finding each other again. Clint and Meredith assumed Brian would return. He never did. They searched the bar. They checked the restrooms. They looked around the surrounding businesses. There was no sign of him. As the minutes passed, concern slowly replaced confusion. Calls to Brian's phone went unanswered. Eventually, his friends left the area, still believing he might have gone home on his own. The next morning, Brian never contacted anyone. He didn't answer his phone. He didn't return home. He didn't call Alexis. That was completely out of character. His family knew something was wrong. Within hours, a missing person investigation officially began. Detectives immediately secured the surveillance footage from the South Campus Gateway complex. They believed the cameras would quickly answer the most important question. Which direction had Brian gone after leaving the bar? Instead, the footage created an even bigger mystery. Investigators carefully reconstructed Brian's final known movements. They identified everyone who entered the building with him. They tracked customers as they left. Employees were interviewed. Security guards were questioned. Delivery workers were identified. Every possible witness was asked the same question. Did you see Brian Shaffer leave the building? No one could say they had. Police expanded the search beyond the entertainment complex. Nearby streets were searched. Parking garages, construction areas, vacant buildings. Search teams worked through locations that Brian could have reached on foot. Nothing. Search dogs were brought in. Their handlers hoped Brian's scent would lead investigators somewhere. Instead, the trail ended near the entrance of the complex. After that, there was nothing investigators could reliably follow. Days became weeks. The investigation grew larger. The FBI was consulted. Media coverage spread across the country. Thousands of tips began arriving. Most led nowhere. Every new lead raised hope. Every dead end made the mystery even more frustrating. Investigators now faced a disturbing reality. Brian Shaffer hadn't simply gone missing. It was as if he had vanished from the timeline itself. And just when detectives believed they understood the layout of the building, they discovered something that forced them to question the entire investigation. By now, the investigation had reached a standstill. Detectives knew where Brian had last been seen. They knew who he had been with. They knew the exact time he appeared on camera. What they didn't know was how he disappeared. That forced investigators to focus on one place, the South Campus Gateway complex. From the outside, it looked like an ordinary entertainment center. But inside, the layout was far more complicated than most people realized. The Ugly Tuna Saloona occupied the second floor. Customers usually reached it by riding a long outdoor escalator or taking an elevator from street level. Those areas were covered by surveillance cameras, but the public entrance wasn't the only way through the building. There were employee corridors, service hallways, maintenance areas, emergency exits. Some sections of the complex were still under construction in 2006. Detectives carefully examined each of those locations. Could Brian have entered an employees-only area? Could he have walked through a service corridor without attracting attention? Could he have left through an exit that wasn't fully covered by surveillance? These questions became the center of the investigation. Police interviewed employees who had been working that night: bartenders, servers, security staff, maintenance workers. No one reported seeing Brian after his conversation outside the bar. No one remembered helping him, or arguing with him, or watching him leave through a restricted area. Investigators also reviewed construction records for the building. Some researchers later suggested Brian might have accidentally entered an unfinished section of the complex, but repeated searches failed to uncover any evidence supporting that idea. No clothing, no personal belongings, no biological evidence. Nothing connected Brian to any hidden area inside the building. Even so, the possibility could never be completely dismissed, because investigators still couldn't explain one simple fact. If Brian didn't leave through the main entrance, then where did he go? Every answer seemed to create another contradiction. If he used a service exit, why did nobody see him? If he remained inside the building, why was no evidence ever discovered? And if he somehow escaped the cameras, how did he manage to do what no one else that night had done? The building had been searched. The footage had been reviewed. The witnesses had been questioned. Yet the mystery remained exactly where it had started, with one missing man and no confirmed path leading away from his last known location. As months turned into years, investigators began looking beyond the building itself, and that was when the theories surrounding Brian Shaffer's disappearance became even more controversial. Years passed, but Brian Shaffer's case refused to disappear. Every few months, a new article would appear, a new interview, a new theory. And for a brief moment, people believed the mystery had finally been solved. It never was. Investigators eventually found themselves returning to the same questions, again and again. Was Brian trying to escape his old life? On the surface, the idea seemed possible. He had recently lost his mother. Medical school was demanding. Grief affects people in different ways. But when detectives looked at the evidence, that theory became difficult to support. Brian never withdrew money from his accounts. His credit cards were never used. His passport remained inside his apartment. There has never been a verified sighting proving he started a new life. Then there was another possibility. Could Brian have suffered a tragic accident after leaving the building? Police searched nearby streets, parking garages, construction areas, even the river. Nothing connected Brian to any accident. No clothing, no backpack, no phone, no physical evidence. For many investigators, that theory slowly lost strength. The possibility of foul play was harder to dismiss, not because detectives found evidence of a crime, but because they never found evidence of anything else. No one saw Brian after 1:55 a.m. No one heard a struggle. No one reported suspicious activity. Yet Brian vanished completely. Some investigators believed he encountered the wrong person at exactly the wrong moment. Others argued there was simply no evidence to support that conclusion. And that is what makes this case so unusual. Every theory explains one part of the mystery, while creating another. Even today, experienced investigators disagree about what happened. Some believe the answer lies inside the building. Others believe Brian walked away unnoticed. And some believe the crucial piece of evidence was missed during the first hours of the investigation, when every minute mattered most. Almost 20 years have passed. Technology has improved. Investigative techniques have evolved. Thousands of people have examined this case. Yet the most important question remains exactly where it was in 2006. What happened to Brian Shaffer after the cameras lost him? Almost 20 years have passed since Brian Shaffer disappeared. His father spent years searching for answers. His friends have replayed that night in their minds countless times. Investigators examined every lead they could verify. Some brought hope. Most ended in disappointment. Despite thousands of hours of investigation, no one has ever been able to prove what happened after Brian walked back toward the entrance of the Ugly Tuna Saloona. His case remains officially unsolved. And perhaps that is what makes it so unforgettable. Most missing person cases leave behind at least one clear direction: a confirmed sighting, physical evidence, a reliable witness. Brian's case left almost nothing, only questions. Could he have slipped past the cameras without anyone noticing? Was there an exit investigators failed to fully understand? Did someone cross Brian's path during the final moments of that night? Or is the answer something far simpler, that has been overlooked because everyone has been searching for something more complicated? After nearly 2 decades, those questions remain unanswered. But one thing has never changed. Somewhere, someone may still know what happened that night. Someone may have seen something, dismissed it as unimportant, and never told investigators. Sometimes, the smallest detail becomes the missing piece that solves an impossible mystery. If you were one of the detectives assigned to this case, what would you investigate first? Would you focus on the surveillance footage, the building itself, or the people Brian encountered during his final known moments? Let us know your theory in the comments. We read every investigation, every timeline, and every opinion shared by this community. If you enjoy carefully researched true crime documentaries based on verified facts, subscribe to The Missing Piece. Because every case has evidence, every mystery has questions, and sometimes, the truth is hiding in the one detail everyone else ignored. Until next time, stay curious and never stop asking questions.